Great, thanks, Ben. I do think you're spot on. It is a little odd kind of giving a presentation with no feedback, audio feedback, but at least you can still kind of get the general gist, and definitely happy to be chatting here today with everybody. So, as was mentioned previously, when I'm looking at RTweet, so it's introduction to RTweet. It's getting and analyzing data from the Twitter API. So RTweet's already gotten one mention for the day, which is great, and I'm going to cover a little bit more here. I think this box is this. All right. So first of all, let's just talk through some of the topics for the day. So a little bit about myself and why I'm talking about this and why I'm talking to you. Looking at RTweet generally. So what is RTweet? How does it work? What are some cool things you can do with it? Talk briefly about the Twitter API itself. Look at tweeting from R, actually, which is a really kind of fun little trick here. Talk about the search tweets function, which does, you can probably guess, search for tweets. Get trends, again, the same idea. It's going to get trends from Twitter. You can look at streaming tweets, so you can see, you can start a process. It'll stream tweets and analyze those once they come through. Do a really quick social network analysis. I'm not fantastic at social network analysis yet, something I want to work on, but I want to show there's some really cool stuff you can do there. Get timelines from individual users off of Twitter, as well as getting favorites, which might also be more akin to likes. So a little bit about myself. So I'm a social scientist by training. I have an undergraduate in psychology with a minor in music, and then more psychology. So I earned a master's in cognitive and social psychology, and then completed a doctorate in law and policy a few years back. I'm a higher education analyst by trade, so I've had, I think it's closer to 12 or 13 years experience at this point in higher education analytics, so improving education at universities with data. And I jokingly say I'm an R user by stumbling. I'm self-taught at R, but I started my, let's say, analytics experience with Excel. I think a lot of us probably did the same. And then throughout my career in education, I was looking at a lot of SPSS. So if you're not familiar with SPSS, it's a programming software for social sciences, and using the graphical user interface there. And then the running joke with my boss at the time at one point was, let's see if we can actually break SPSS. So we started tearing apart the syntax and scripting out some really cool projects. And this is actually where I first started hearing about R. My boss at the time was playing around with it. And I think I've been kind of learning R for over 10 years at this point, but not been really serious until the last few years. Last 4 years, it's been very heavy in SQL and AWS stack. I'm doing that for my current job. And then just R. So I do a little R in my current job, some R in my side gigging, but also just R because I think it's fun. It's relatively easy to learn along the way. I mean, sure, I had a lot of stumbling blocks, but I think for a programming language, it's easier, and there's a great community on Twitter for R as well to help you learn. So what is RTweet? Well, besides a really cute little little image here, little bird, RTweet, there's actually a really fantastic vignette out there that you can click through, and some of what I'm talking through is going to closely mirror that vignette. It's incredibly clean and clear, and it's a great place to start in a way that you can use Twitter data effectively and easily. So the package itself was developed and maintained by Michael Kearney, who is on Twitter. Here's his handle. Definitely check him out. He's actually very active on Twitter and has responded to a few of my questions even about RTweet. So accessible, great guy there. Part of the R OpenSci project, if you're not familiar with that, orange mark there, I will publish these slides. That's a direct link to it, and R OpenSci has a lot of just great tools that you can get towards. This is, I think, the longest line in any of my slides here. So what is RTweet? Well, it's an implementation of calls that are designed to collect and organize Twitter data via Twitter's REST and Stream APIs. And you can find out more about those APIs and the REST and Stream portion here in the developer Twitter pages. So a little bit about the Twitter API itself. Until not that long ago, when I first even started looking at RTweet, maybe a little over a year ago, we found that you actually needed a Twitter developer account, and that was a barrier to entry for a lot of users. So you don't actually need that anymore, but if you do want to create a Twitter developer account, you still can. It's a fantastic walkthrough. It'll walk you through how to do this and authorize and create an RTweet, basically a tool you can utilize. But instead of going that route, you can just have a personal Twitter account like you would have, and then you just need that account to be able to access the API. You'll authorize the API by calling an rtweet function, any function like search tweets. And what that's actually going to do is it's going to, if you are not logged into Twitter, right, it'll bring up a page and it'll ask you to log in. And then if you are, once you are logged in, it'll just simply ask you to authorize rtweet to access your data, click yes, it'll authenticate, and you'll be good to go. A very important note, the Twitter API does limit to 18,000 results for every 15 minutes. But to that point, there's a cool subcall within your functions. There's retry on rate limit. If you set that to true, and you're trying to query more than 18,000 results in that time period, essentially kicks off a timer for you so it doesn't block your account. Once you approach that 18,000 limit, the rtweet itself will basically pause the call to the API and then restart it again in 15 minutes. It's a great way to be able to query more than 18,000 results, but not have to manually chunk it out yourself. Have to say this, doctorate law and policy, right? If you're going to use rtweet, especially a Twitter API, you must use it in accordance with Twitter's developer terms, and they're linked here. So the setup itself, I think any project, you have to have a setup. These 6 packages that I'm using here, rtweet, HTTPUV, which is useful for authentication, and rtweet utilizes this, but also loaded. The tidyverse, scales for customizing plot axes, iGraph for social network analysis, and upsetter for an upset plot I'll show. These are just the 6 packages. That's all I use for packages throughout the presentation. I will post the code to this presentation as well on my GitHub page. I'll link that at the end. And any of these independent slides can be run on their own without anything else. So a lot of us might be used to tweeting, right? You'll go to Twitter. This is a screenshot of me acting like I'm going to tweet something, saying, "Hey, satRdays DC, you can post a tweet direct from our stats." And then, right, it's like click a little image, put it up there. But you can actually do this directly from our tweet. So if you use the post tweet command, add a status, add some media, this will actually directly post to Twitter. It's a little kind of fun. Maybe you're in your R studio, you want to play around, just tweet directly from there. But there's some cool utility to this. If you want to tweet out results to something, say you're doing analysis and you want to just tweet out the end product, you can actually script it in and automatically push it to to Twitter, which is a really cool thing to do. But maybe a little more interesting, sort of just kind of tweeting from R. You have other options. So you might go to Twitter, you want to search for something. The Our Ladies organization, I think it's been plugged a few times today, as it should. It's a fantastic organization, very supportive. So let's say I want to search for anything that's hashtag Our Ladies, right? I go to Twitter, I go to the search box, look for latest. You can do that directly with rtweet. So the search tweets call, you can search tweets for, in this case, again, Our Ladies. I'm limiting a certain number of records I want to pull, but that's not really necessary here. And then I'm excluding retweets. So include RTS is retweets and setting it to false because I want just true tweets. A very simple TS plot, so that's a time series plot. And that's just a great way to plot time series data. And then here you go. So you've pulled data about Our Ladies that anyone has actually hashtagged, and you can see the distribution here quite cleanly, quite simply. An important thing to note here, I'll note a few more times along the way that when you search tweets or any call, it's actually going to pull down more than just, say, the time frame, right? It's going to pull down, I think, up to 90 different fields that you can analyze and include for your analysis. So let's say maybe you want to go and check out some trends, right? So if you log into Twitter, either on your mobile, you'll find a search, you'll see what's trending, or if you log in on the web page, the web portal, you'll see on the right sidebar there a number of trends, right? So this is a screenshot from my trends a couple of days ago. You can actually get this information from rtweet as well. So if you use the trends available, so this little subcall commented out, if you use trends available, it'll show you all the different locales that you can pull from. So in this case, I'm getting trends for Washington, and this is, confirmed, this is Washington, DC. And then I'm just going to pull a top 3 based on tweet volume. a simple ggplot, reordering by tweet volume descending. And here we go. This is pulled this morning, and these are just the top 3 trending Twitter topics in Washington, D.C. currently. You can also stream tweets. So this acts a little bit differently. Every other call that I've talked about previously and we'll talk about is basically a look back, right? It's pulling things that have already happened. But if you want to say, let me actually try to do some sort of study, or you're interested in what might be coming, there's a stream tweets function. So I wrote this to an object first, simply because I'm actually streaming for a full hour, which locks up my R for a full hour. So I clicked it, let it run, and did something else. But this creates a JSON file that writes to your project folder, and then just collects any tweets that meet the criteria that you set. So in this case, I just look for R stats. And then again, a little time series plot here. And you can see over that hour that it was streaming, this is the frequency distribution of R stats Twitter mentions. Continue on with this. Again, I'm not a social network analysis master here. A lot of this code was kind of borrowed or modified, which is actually great about a lot of the projects with RTweet that are out there. And RTweet itself is it's actually MIT license, which means it's free to use however you want. So my presentation also is, so you can go in and my GitHub page, take this presentation, and use it however you'd like. What you're going to see is I'm working through and I'm pulling a list of friends. I'm pulling myself, Michael Kearney, who created RTweet, Little Miss Data, who did a great project on the upset plot I'll show shortly. There's a great write-up that's linked as well. And Anna Henschel, who helps run a group that does some really cool RTweet stuff as well. And I say, okay, let me pull up our users here. I'm going to get the friend's name. So look up the actual screen name for the friends based on the user ID. And then the next chunk where I'm looking at the friends list is I just want to pull back just 2 columns. So the user and the screen name. I had to add that extra step because the screen name, for some reason, wasn't in this get friends list, but that's all right. The accounts followed. The next step is I'm just pulling in, again, who's following all these individual users. I'm going to trim that down to a smaller manageable data set in a matrix, and then plot it out. The couple variants of the setup, so changing color, changing maybe the vertex, and different sizes, just to make it look a little bit cleaner. Again, this I can't say is incredibly clean. I'm not the best social network analysis person here, but you can see in the center, we have the users that I called specifically. And then you can see these concentric circles around it. These are all of the users that we overlap. So you can say all of these users are people that we all have friends of. Now there's a couple Python people in there, I know we've kind of taken 2 jabs, but it's cool though, because a lot of these folks, if there are stats or not, I think every one of them or almost every one of them is interested in programming and data science, and you can learn some cool stuff from all of them. Let's say you want to pull some more data, right? You want to pull a timeline. So let's say I go to Twitter, I go to my own page, I look at tweets. I pulled this the other day. It's okay. Here's my timeline. Here's what it looks like. Well, again, you can do that in RTweet. So if you use the get timelines function and just pick some users, so I'll say get timelines, I'll pull data in me, Thomas Mock, and C mastication. So some really great R folks out there. And filter down to just any tweets or anything on their timeline that had been tweeted so far this calendar year. The time series plot again, and then plotting it out a line for each of the individual users that I pulled, and then showing their frequency distribution cleanly based on how often all of these users were tweeting during this time. Now, functionally, you can do other parts of Twitter as well. So instead of maybe just the tweets and the timeline, let's say I want to look at the likes, right? That's going to be favorites is what's called RTweet, but you can pull anything that's been liked as well and when someone liked that data. So for instance, Hadley, probably all know Hadley by now in some variety or heard of him at least. So I want to look at, okay, where's Hadley himself favorite? So I'll pull a get favorites and just pull his most recent 1,000 favorites. And then what I'm doing the next step is just summarize by screen name how many favorites. So who is he favoriting the most often? And then just select the top 5 with this top N call, and then have a ggplot that's going to show the distribution here. You can see these 5 users are the users that Hadley has most recently most favorited, it's kind of a cool way to check out what's going on there by people you might be interested in. Say there's somebody you want to know what they're interested in or what they're liking. You do that with a call like this. Then the upset plot, it's a little bit tough to maybe read it first. I'll talk you through, but I want to get through the code first because I strongly believe that seeing the code kind of helps understand what you're doing. So Paul Campbell here, I credit to him because I took and borrowed most of this code from him, tweeted it to sort of my own needs, but he had a really cool post on Twitter that inspired a lot of chatter about the upset plot. So again, I'm looking at myself here, a couple other users we talked about already, CMS Education, Thomas Mock, Michael Kearney, Miss Data, and Anna Henschel. And then stepping through, let's get the follower up set up. I want to just pull out the different followers for each of these users, create a unique list of the followers by user ID, and then it's setting up binaries. And those binaries are going to be a one-for-one to say, I think it's 2-column, and it's quite literally, one user who followed them, one user who followed them. And then this last step is just going to add some color, format the plot a little bit, and it's going to create a graphic like this. I know it's a little small, probably a little easier to read on your own screen, but to quickly describe what this is, because I think it's kind of fun once you get it, is let's say we have the individual users kind of down bottom left here. And then the follower count for each of them, you have a little bar graph to show the individual follower count. Now, this other bar graph on the top that I'm going to show is sloping outward here is showing the overlap, so the intersection size of the set below. So how would you read this? Well, I'll pick myself, so I'm on the top. You see this little dot, this first dot. This is one of the bar graphs where I am represented within that bar graph. And I can't read the exact number, but 600 and some individuals. So of the 6 people in this list, I only overlap with about 600 of them in total. So if you keep reading out to the side, you can see this next one where I'm actually included in the set. Almost all of us other than Anna are included here, and there's 50 some users that actually overlap all 5 of the people selected there. And if we follow down this line, I think it's good to explain. So you can see all users are within this intersecting set. 13 of them we have is shared across everybody. And then to kind of start getting near my wrap up here, I can say, but wait, there's always more. So for a full list of what's included in the data pool, you can go to the tweet data dictionary. But for me, a few of interest are about created at. So when was a tweet actually created? And that's in UTC time. For us in the DC area, you can look at created at minus 18,000, which is 5 hours and seconds for Eastern time. We'll have the text. The text is literally the content of the tweet. It's source, which is the utility used to post the tweet. So for me, actually, I find there's some really interesting trends of where and how I tweet. Is retweet, pretty self-explanatory. Favorite count, so the number of times a tweet was favorited. Retweet count, the number of times a tweet was retweeted. Hashtags and URLs are going to be strings of hashtags and URLs, as well as screen names mentioned in any given tweet. And there are a bunch of other fields. If you go to the page here, you can see there's about 90. You don't have time to go through all of them. You can see there's a lot of data available throughout our tweet itself. And I'm right on time. Thank you, everybody. You can find me on Twitter, LinkedIn, GitHub. And as I said earlier, this talk is freely distributed under the MIT license, and also so is our tweet. So thank you, everybody.